Obviously, there's been a big thing about AI in writing, and in particular, how did the AI companies train their models? And basically, they took books from authors, fed their thousands of books from authors into their models to train the models, without asking, without licensing them, without asking for permission and all this sort of stuff now. And there's been a big argument in there have been a few cases going on in the States, and a big argument about whether that's fair use. Now, fair use, not to get too technical about it all, but fair use is a defence in the United States against copyright. It is not a defence in the United Kingdom or Europe, where fair dealing is sort of similar but not the same. So those are the arguments diverge there slightly. But in any event, in the US, there was a case involving Anthropic brought by some authors, and the judge had ruled actually that the training was fair use. Although if you read the judgment, I'm not sure if they fully understood, how these models worked and whether that was the right decision. But nevertheless, more pertinent to this story is that the judge did find that Anthropic had trained the model with these books from what is called sometimes a shadow library, basically a database of pirated books. And, Anthropic are not the only company to have done this, it appears. There are other lawsuits ongoing that accuse other companies of the same thing. But the judge did find, in making that fair use ruling, that they had used this shadow library and allowed the claimants to form a class so that they could bring a class action, so that any author whose book was in the database that qualified as part of this class would then have a claim against Anthropic. And in the US, there's also statutory damages for doing something like this. So I think it was going to be $750 per book. Now, that worked out, some people worked out that was going to cost Anthropic $1 trillion.
Wow.
To pay out if every member of the class was found to have a claim. Now, Anthropic brought in new lawyers, and the new lawyers obviously said, the Anthropic and all these companies have been fighting all of these cases very hard and saying it's not breach of copyright, it's fair use, blah, blah, blah. But the new lawyers have obviously come in and given different advice. And last week, it was announced that settlement had been agreed in this particular case. Now, it's not been made clear what that settlement is. Hi, I'm just dropping in from the future because inevitably after we recorded this episode, the details of the settlement did appear in the press. So it turns out that the settlement is currently worth $1.5 billion, which amounts to about $3,000 for 500,000 works in this shadow library. Now, my understanding from the reports is that this could grow if other works that qualify are identified. The lawyers for the plaintiffs said that the settlement sends a powerful message to AI companies and creators alike that taking copyrighted works from these pirate websites is wrong. And it's the largest copyright recovery in history and the first in this AI era. Anthropic, as part of the settlement, also have to destroy downloaded copies of the books by the authors that accused it of pirating, and they could also still face infringement claims for material produced by Anthropic and their model in the future. The response to that has been mixed, it's fair to say. I think a lot of people are pointing to the fact that Anthropic recently raised $13 billion in a round of funding, so $1.5 billion in the grand scheme of things isn't very much, is the argument. But of course, it is something, and it remains to be seen what happens in future cases as well, because this is obviously only a settlement, and it feels like the start of the battle rather than the end. But now, back to the pre-recorded episode. And, the lawyers for the claimants have said that it's a great victory for authors. And it is a good step. It's not going to, because it's a settlement, it's not binding, obviously. So it doesn't set a precedent. So I suppose that's good from the AI company's point of view. They can still fight in these other cases and stuff like that. But it does show that there has been, or it certainly suggests that there has been advice given to Anthropic that suggests that their argument wasn't great and it was unlikely to succeed. So that is a positive thing, I think, for authors and other creatives.
So can I check? So the settlement that was reached between Anthropic, that's between them and the class action of the authors that were banded together in the States.
Yes.
So that must, I think that's right. I think that is a good sign in terms of sending out like a kind of signal that any other future claims will probably have to be settled because they're unlikely to succeed. And even if, as you say, Anthropic are not the only AI company who's been working with these books taken from the shadow library. So I'd imagine there's a whole bunch of other potential class actions about to come any minute now.
I mean, there are issues about who qualifies for the class because, for example, I know that I think to be part of the class, and you're automatically part of the class if you're in the class, if that makes sense. But you need to have,
I believe is a term.
The legal term for it.
You need to have had the book. The book has to have been registered with the Copyright Office in America. So if you're in the UK, for example, I know that lots of UK's authors' books are in this shadow library. There's a site where you can go and check if it was in this library.
This is the site that the Atlantic put a link to.
Yes, that's it, and we can put that in the podcast description. But a lot of authors' books won't have been registered with the Copyright Office in the US. Now that potentially opens up claims about should it have been. Do these authors then have a claim against their publisher for not doing that?
Well, this is the thing.
It means the class isn't quite as big as it seems. Yeah.
Because technically, I got US publisher, my UK publisher. So I haven't even checked. I'm assuming that my US publishers for my US editions would have registered my book with the Copyright Office in the States, but in the UK we don't have that requirement to register with, like, for example, a copyrights, the equivalent of Companies House. We don't have that. As soon as you create your work, copyright is there and it's protected. I don't know.
There's a link I saw, an easy way to check if you're registered or not. We can put a link in the podcast bio as well.
But what do you do? Do you sue your publisher, your US publisher, if they don't?
Well, it depends. But is there a duty?
Arguably, there's a class action potentially there, isn't there?
But is there a duty on your US publisher to register you?
I imagine in your contract
would be,
there would be there would be general wording that they're going to protect your copyright in some way or something.
But does that mean? Does that mean if you've not registered? So in the US, if you don't register your book on the copyright, I could then come along. So say, Nadine, your book's not copyrighted, right, in the US. I could then just take your book, put my name on it, and put it out again.
Because copyright.
No, I have copyright protection in the UK. I have copyright protection. So.
But I could do that in the US, though.
Because copyright. Because I think now, none of us are US lawyers here, but my understanding is that copyright still manifests in the same way in the US, i.e., the point of creation is the point that copyright manifests. It's just that they also have a register. It's like a belt and braces approach. So they have a register as well. Okay. And it's just how this class and this action has been defined is with reference to this copyright register.
To use that as the benchmark.
So for this particular thing, then it has to be part of the class. You have to be registered with the Copyright Office. Okay.
I just think, like, if I'm speaking like objectively, it's like authors. The issue with, I say, AI, with our books being used to train AIs, is the whole matter of consent. And that's what the issue is. It's like, if you want to train it, okay, you want to use my book to train AI, fine. But you need to pay me for it. You can't just steal it. If you want to argue, you can argue fair use and all that.
There would be loads of authors who would say, no problem, go for it.
Yeah.
Probably never that much. They would accept it.
If you've got no sales, sorry, but you've got your book's not selling. It's like, well, you can use it to train AI, but you need to do it with my permission.
I can see a world in which in the future it becomes a sort of standard clause essentially in your contract, and you get a little bit of extra money to license it to be used in models or not. And if you don't want to do that, then that's made clear, and you don't get that little extra bump in.
We've certainly seen that. Have we not seen a few publishers, or one publisher?
Publishers have started to try and link up
a flat fee.
Yeah.
It was less than £1,000, I think it was for.
Yeah.
Well, you did. When I think about, I'm trying to think back to like my contracts. Like you have the section dealing with ebooks, but also if it's selling your books in regards to like newspapers to use it for whatever article they want to use it for, or stage plays, there's some kind of licensing clause within the contract. So I think it's just a matter of time before that extends to AI, because it's not like AI is not going anywhere. I mean, that's the truth of it.
Yeah, that's the reality. And I think that's the difference, is that people sometimes, I think, get so caught up in the kind of moral arguments that the reality of it is not going anywhere. It's out the bottle. It's here to stay. There's no point trying to pretend it doesn't exist. We do need to deal with the reality of the world.
You take a pragmatic view of these things. I mean, I think there is going to be a reckoning of. Like, I don't think there's going to be all these AI companies. I think there is a bubble there, and it does seem to start.
It's already started to burst.
But as a technology as a whole, I agree. I don't think it's going to go away entirely. So you now have to say, how are you going to move forward with it in some way?
I think what this case has probably done is that it's going to have UK authors, or authors, non-US authors, looking at themselves, looking at their publishers, looking at their governments, and thinking, what are you doing in order to protect us, and how can we protect us? Because if you can make a claim in the States, that's all well and good, but what can we do?
But I mean, I'm surprised there's not really been a big UK push yet.
It's weird.
I know they're more litigious, but
I wondered about it. I think it could be like, I think the fair use argument is harder for the LLM companies to argue here. Because it doesn't exist. Essentially, fair dealing is a very different thing. But I think it might be more established. It might be harder here to establish the loss element of the claim. Because just because your book's in a shadow library, you still have to prove an actual loss. And that might be the hurdle that is.
How do
is
movie
more
studios
difficult to
do
get over?
it? Because they go after people sometimes who've downloaded films off Pirate Bay, etc. How do they quantify their loss?
Exactly. No, you would need to come up and show that. There will be ways to do it. I'm not saying that you can't do it. I'm just saying that in this country, I think that might be the difficult hurdle that needs to be overcome.
Yeah.
But I don't understand why something like the Society of Authors or something like that isn't speaking to lawyers, isn't looking at because you can bring class actions in, or I don't know what they're called in England and Wales, but in Scotland they're called group proceedings. You can do that.
Yeah,
you can do the same in England.
You can do the same in England and Wales.
Yeah. So it's
as always.
I think this is a good news story for authors. It still remains to be seen what the settlement is and how it shakes out in relation to the other claims, and how it shakes out around the world outside of the US. But I think it's good that these companies are starting to think, oh, hang on, we can't get away with these arguments that we've been trying to make for so long.
Yeah.
But what do you think? Do you agree with us? Do you think that this is a good deal? Do you think that AI is here, that we do have to come up with a pragmatic solution to it, or do you think we should just not ever deal with them? Let us know in the comments. Email us, all of this sort of stuff. It'd be great to keep this debate going, which is we're bound to return to in the future.
Not going anywhere.
Exactly.
I mean, so far every episode it's
I know, every episode I think we're not talking about AI today, and here we are talking about AI.